Picking up on the point that you just mentioned was the customer, the business side. Um, you always want the customer to be involved and and be there for you. How have you experienced as a developer or the coach, how this lack of customer involvement affects the value?
Yeah.
So if the customer is not really responding to demands and not keeping in touch with the team, how does that affect the team?
So I'll tell you about a small company I worked for.
Hmm.
The owner would turn up. And the reason the owner turned up is because they knew that was their chance to govern. They would turn up to the ceremony. So the rituals that we won't go through, but all the rituals you'll have learned about and will have used, he would turn up to some of them. He'd definitely turn up to the showcase because he knew the value of doing that. In the bigger organizations, I worked for the University of Sydney for a while.
Hmm.
Those guys, I'd get the CFO turning up. So those guys that want to be involved, it's very easy for them to see the value of it. And my experience of those is we delivered better outcomes quicker. Where I see, and it doesn't matter if it's waterfall or agile, I think I'm thinking back to 10 years ago now when projects were really much more waterfall based. If they're not turning up, they're probably not going to want the solution anyway. So I'm moving away from customer for a second. Let's just stick with users. Enterprise. Just for a second, I'm working in CRM at the moment, for instance. If users aren't turning up, if the people who are supposedly sponsors, they probably don't want the solution you're building. So it's in waterfall, that leads to a massive tail on the project because they didn't really want it. So when you come in, it's a change that they don't want. In agile, it means you become a waterfall project because you don't get the engagement throughout. You don't get the chance to refine. So when they do get it, they get exactly the same outcome as you would have done with waterfall, which is a pretty poorly defined solution. And then you go through the long tail on an agile project as well. So that lack of engagement, the real difference between, I know we don't like to do waterfall and agile too much, but it's the easiest way to communicate. The real difference, I might say this more than once in this chat, the one big difference between the two is waterfall is a very linear process. It's designed to be linear. You do very big requirements up front, and you don't get the mark all the time unless you're building a bridge or you're cooking a meal that someone's had before. It's very simple. When you're doing something for the first time, getting the engagement throughout, it's designed to be iterative. If you don't have the customer engagement there, you're not getting a review of the product. There's no point in being iterative. It's genuinely, if you don't have that review or showcase at the end of every increment, what's the point in doing agile?
Might as
Like,
well
I
do
actually can't think of any
waterfall.
benefits. You literally may as well do waterfall because at least you get the engagement at the beginning. And I think there's some of the modern frameworks that have come out like Safe, which I despise, by the way. I think it's a terrible solution. But you do get the business users join you for intense periods of time, as opposed to, you'd be amazed. They don't want to turn up for an hour every 2 weeks. They see it as a technology ceremony. As in where PI planning, they see it as a business ceremony. So they'll turn up for that. And it's probably the closest to getting business engagement in a lot of the organizations I've been in. But
So
in the short answer to your question is you get so quality isn't testing, right? If I was chatting to someone who wasn't an agile mindset, they'd think quality was testing. Quality is it usable? Do the people want it? Is it going to sell? Is it going to last? You don't get that without customer engagement. I've never seen it. I've never seen it in anything. I've probably got exceptions to the rule. All the best things that I've delivered, be it waterfall or agile, it's been because I've had an engaged stakeholder group or engaged customers.
how did you ensure that the customer then remains or is constantly involved? Because as you just mentioned, for example, the CFO or the owner of the company, they had an intrinsic motivation to participate. How do you get these people, the customers, on board and
Yeah,
make sure that they deliver the
it's a good
feedback that
question.
they're supposed to?
Yeah, you're quite lucky if they are that cut from that cloth and they want to join in. You do meet people like that, but you're quite lucky. This is
Hmm.
where it becomes a two-way street. So I can picture myself now in front of my team and them asking me that question, and my response would be, "It's on you. If you are not showing them something that's worth turning up for, they're not going to. We have to show them something. We have to show them something that they go, my goodness, that's good. If only we could have it in green." But if you don't have that, if you show them something and then they say, well, when's that going to make production? You go, oh, next year. They're not going to turn up for the next one. They'll say, well, tell me when it's about to go into production. So you've got to get the release schedule right.
Hmm.
So when they turn up, if they say, yes, I like it, it goes into production. That's what the sales team want, and that's what the CFO wanted. He wants to go back to his peers and say, by the way, look out for this thing next week. So that's one way. It's really about get your release schedule right. Make sure that when you're showing them something, it is actually something different to last time. And we'll talk about that other secret of Agile. Make sure you work in small increments and make sure that they got something that's it's really, really important. So that two-way street would probably be my one answer, which would be you have to make it engaging for them. So the big mistake that I see is that it becomes a showcase that's just kicking the can down the road. Let's just see what we've done. It's not a review of progress like a steering committee. It's actually showing what's going to go into production. By the way, the trick at the university where the CFO, 4-week sprint. That's all we could do. It was a data division rather than it's not an application as such. It was the dashboards and showing data. So it's a little bit more complicated to get things tested anyway. So we went for a 4-week sprint, and that guaranteed we could do the releases and we could do the engagement. That was something we adopted because of that.
So keeping them constantly engaged through small increments, showing them, keeping them interested, delivering them what they actually need would also be what they expect at the same time.
You can't. So when you said what they need, it's I'm sure you didn't mean this, or maybe you did. What's their priority? Show them the stuff. So that the backlog. And I can't understand anyone who doesn't have a backlog. I've heard some project managers recently despising the backlog, but the top of the backlog, if they say they're my top 3 things, and you said you're going to work in sprints, be them 2 weeks or 4 weeks, you want to be delivering those 3, definitely 1, probably 2, hopefully 3. And if you're doing 4, 5, 6, drop it. Stop now, because I'll talk about that CFO. The CFO doesn't give a monkeys about those. That's an English colloquial term. Doesn't care about those. He really only cares about 1, 2, 3. The other thing that CFOs and all these guys who are influential in an organization, they care about their next big meeting with their boss as well. They want to show stuff. Don't tell him it's going to be 3 months, or her that it's going to be 3 months. You genuinely don't get. You lose attention really quickly. Well, you lose my attention, to be honest. If I get called in and someone says, "Oh, we're doing an upgrade and it's going to be 3 months," I'll say, "Call me back when it's 1 month." Because that's when you'll have something to show me. So those short periods and really focusing on their priorities is absolutely essential. Limiting your WIP would be one of the ways of doing that, of course.
Right.
Limiting your work in progress. It's no good having 15 things that we slowly show them.
Another thing that might